You are sitting close to a fire. It is roughly 50,000 years ago. The smell coming off the coals is fat rendering out of bone, rich, heavy, the kind of smell that reaches something deep and animal in the back of your brain. There is meat, there are roots that have been sitting in the embers long enough to soften. There are some berries someone brought back hours ago, already starting to ferment slightly in the heat. This is dinner, and it is nothing like what you had today. Most people, when they picture what ancient humans ate, land on one of two images. The first is the noble savage version, a man with a spear standing over a mammoth, surrounded by a feast of pure red meat, pure protein, pure strength. The second is the opposite, desperate scavenging, grubs and bark and whatever could be found between hunts. Both images are wrong, and what the actual evidence shows is stranger, more sophisticated, and more relevant to your body right now than either one. The bones tell the first part of the story, and they tell it with a precision that would surprise most people. Ancient human skeletons from hunter-gatherer populations, before agriculture, before domesticated livestock, before any of the food systems modern humans take for granted, are, by almost every skeletal metric, healthier than the skeletons of the early farmers who came after them. Taller, stronger bone density, better teeth with dramatically lower rates of decay and wear, less evidence of the nutritional deficiency diseases, rickets, scurvy, iron deficiency, anemia, that begin appearing in force the moment populations shift to grain-based agriculture. The bones of ancient hunter-gatherers are the bones of people who were, nutritionally, doing something right. Paleoanthropologist Clark Spencer Larson, who spent decades analyzing skeletal health across the agricultural transition, documented the shift in stark terms. When populations switched from hunting and gathering to farming, average height dropped by several inches within a few generations. Dental decay rates increased dramatically. Evidence of chronic infection and childhood nutritional stress, visible as horizontal lines in tooth enamel called Harris lines, became common where they had been rare. Agriculture fed more people. It did not feed them better, which means the diet that produced the healthier skeletons, the one ancient humans were eating before the agricultural revolution changed everything, was doing something nutritionally sophisticated that most modern diets still fail to replicate. But the bones reveal a massive counterintuitive twist. Ancient humans were not primarily meat eaters. The image of the prehistoric hunter, all protein, all animal fat, nothing else, does not survive contact with the isotopic analysis, dental calculus research, and archaeological food residue evidence accumulated over the last 30 years. The picture that emerges instead is of a diet so varied, so seasonally calibrated, so nutritionally diverse that modern nutritionists studying it use the word remarkable with uncomfortable frequency. Stable isotope analysis, measuring the ratio of carbon and nitrogen isotopes preserved in ancient bone collagen, allows researchers to reconstruct the broad dietary profile of individuals who lived tens of thousands of years ago. What it consistently shows across populations on multiple continents is a mixed signal. Significant animal protein, but also significant plant material. Not a meat diet with occasional plants, a genuinely balanced diet in which both categories contributed substantially. Dental calculus, the hardened plaque that forms on teeth and preserves microscopic food particles for tens of thousands of years, goes further. Studies of ancient dental calculus have found starch granules from multiple plant species, including underground storage organs like tubers and corms that leave almost no trace in the archaeological record. They have found phytoliths, microscopic silica structures from plant cells, identifying specific grasses, sedges, and leafy plants consumed regularly. They have found evidence of cooked starch, confirming that plant foods were being processed with heat long before anyone assumed. Ancient humans were cooking vegetables, tens of thousands of years ago, regularly and deliberately. The plant foods are where the story gets genuinely surprising, because the variety was not incidental, it was extraordinary. A 2021 study analyzing the diets of Paleolithic populations across Europe and Western Asia estimated that ancient hunter-gatherer diets included between 100 and 200 distinct plant species consumed across a single year, not 100 to 200 different meals. 100 to 200 different species of plants, each appearing at a different point in the seasonal cycle, each contributing a different nutritional profile. The modern American diet, by comparison, draws from approximately 17 species of plants for the vast majority of its caloric content. Wheat, corn, rice, soy, and a handful of others dominate almost everything on a supermarket shelf. Your ancient ancestors' gut was processing a rotating library of plant compounds, fiber types, polyphenols, phytonutrients, prebiotic starches that the modern gut encounters almost never. The microbiome that developed inside ancient human digestive systems, shaped by that variety across hundreds of thousands of years, was categorically different from the microbiome inside a modern Western gut. Microbiologist Jeff Leach, who spent 14 months living with the Hadza in Tanzania and regularly sampling their gut bacteria, found microbial diversity levels in Hadza guts that were 2 to 3 times higher than anything documented in Western populations. Species present in every Hadza sample were entirely absent from the Western comparison group. Not rare, gone. The gut your ancestors carried was a different ecosystem from the one you are running right now, and the difference is almost entirely explained by what they were eating every day. Animal foods were not absent, they were central, but what ancient humans were eating when they ate animals is almost nothing like what most modern people eat when they eat meat. The cuts that ancient humans prioritized were not the muscle meat that fills a modern grocery store. Muscle meat was often the least valued part of a kill. What ancient hunters went for first, what the ethnographic record of modern hunter-gatherer groups consistently documents as the most prized, most carefully extracted, most jealously divided food from any large animal, was the organ meat and the fat, liver, kidney, heart, brain, bone marrow, cracked from the long bones of the legs and eaten immediately before it oxidized. Fat from around the organs, kidney fat specifically, the densest and most calorie-rich deposit on the animal's body. These were not scraps, they were the nutritional core of the animal, containing concentrations of fat-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, K2, along with B12, folate, zinc, iron, and omega-3 fatty acids, in forms that muscle meat barely provides. An ancient human eating a freshly killed large animal was not eating a steak. They were eating the liver first, then the kidneys, cracking the bones for marrow, rendering the organ fat, and leaving the muscle meat, the part modern humans treat as the prize, for later or for drying and storage. The nutritional logic was precise. Organ meats and fat provided things that were difficult to get elsewhere in the environment. Muscle meat, abundant and storable, was less urgent. And then there was the seasonal dimension, which is the part of ancient diet that no modern food system replicates at all. Ancient human eating was not consistent across the year. It was radically seasonal. What was available in the height of summer, certain fruits, insects at peak abundance, specific plant species at their nutritional peak, was completely different from what was available in late autumn when roots and tubers became the primary plant calories in hunts focused on animals building pre-winter fat reserves. Winter eating, in colder climates, was dominated by stored foods, cached meat, dried plants, and the concentrated fat of animals at their heaviest. Spring eating shifted again. Early greens, eggs, the first insects, animals that had survived winter in weakened condition and were easier to hunt. This seasonal cycling through radically different nutritional profiles is not incidental. The human body evolved expecting it. The metabolic flexibility that allowed ancient humans to shift between high carbohydrate, plant-heavy summers and high-fat, protein-heavy winters, and to do so without the chronic disease markers that appear in modern populations, eating a consistent year-round diet dominated by refined carbohydrates, is not a feature of exceptional individuals. It is standard human biology running in the conditions it was designed for. The body you are living in right now was engineered over hundreds of thousands of years for a diet that barely resembles what most people eat in a week. But this diet provided something far deeper than just calories. Ancient humans were not just eating food, they were eating information. Every plant that ancient humans consumed carried chemical compounds, bitter alkaloids, tannins, polyphenols, medicinal compounds that the body had to process, neutralize, or put to use. The bitter taste that modern food processing works so hard to remove from vegetables is the taste of these compounds. And the consistent exposure to them across a diet of hundreds of plant species train the liver, the gut microbiome, and the immune system in ways that a diet of processed, compound-stripped modern food simply does not. Ethnobotanist Paul Allen Cox, studying the relationship between traditional plant diets and disease rates in isolated populations, found that groups consuming high-diversity traditional plant diets showed dramatically lower rates of the inflammatory diseases, metabolic syndrome, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, certain cancers that are now the primary causes of death in the developed world. The compounds in those plants were not just nutrition, they were signals. Biochemical instructions the body had evolved over hundreds of thousands of years to receive and act on. When those signals stopped arriving, when the diet narrowed to a handful of processed species stripped of their original chemical complexity, something in the body's operating instructions went unread. The diseases of modern civilization are not simply the result of eating too much. They are, at least in part, the result of the body waiting for information that stopped arriving. Think about the last thing you ate, where it came from, how many species contributed to it, how many of those species your great-great-grandmother would have recognized, let alone your ancestor from 50,000 years ago crouching over a fire with a bone full of marrow. The body doing your digesting right now, the gut, the liver, the microbiome, the metabolic machinery that converts food into thought and movement and warmth, was built by hundreds of thousands of years of eating in a way that almost no one on Earth eats anymore. It is not broken, it is waiting, running ancient software on a diet that was never part of the design. Your ancestors did not eat perfectly. They ate opportunistically, seasonally, sometimes desperately, but the variety, the complexity, the nutritional density of what they consumed across a year built bodies so robust that modern medicine is still trying to understand why theirs were healthier than ours. They didn't have a diet. They had a relationship with everything edible within walking distance of wherever they happened to be standing. That relationship took 300,000 years to build. We replaced it in about 50.